Hello, everyone. This is Paul Rodden. I want to welcome you back to the Hydrogen Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Jill Evanko, the CEO of Chart Industries, on the future of hydrogen liquefaction, compression, and liquid hydrogen storage solutions. Chart is recognized as a global brand for the design and manufacture of highly engineered cryogenic equipment used from the beginning to the end in the liquid gas supply chain. The distribution and storage of products and engineered systems are fundamental delivery and in use of liquid gases across a multitude of applications in the industrial gas and for energy. The company's unique product portfolio is used in every phase of the liquid gas supply chain, including upfront engineering, service, and repair. Being at the forefront of the clean energy transition, Chart is a leading provider of technology, equipment, and services related to liquefied natural gas, hydrogen, biogas, and CO2 capture, among other applications. This is a really fascinating topic, and having a solid understanding of this segment of the hydrogen value chain is, I think, crucial for full cycle scale up of the industry. Okay, enough of me talking. Let's cue up the theme song, and we'll dive right into the interview.
So the big questions in the energy industry today are, how is hydrogen the primary driving force behind the evolution of energy? Where is capital being deployed for hydrogen projects globally? And where are the best investment opportunities for early adopters who recognize the importance of hydrogen? I will address the critical issues and give you the information you need to deploy capital. Those are the questions that will unlock the potential of hydrogen, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Paul Rodden, and welcome to the Hydrogen Podcast.
Okay, welcome back. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Jill Evanko, the CEO of Chart Industries. Jill is the president and CEO of Chart Industries, serving in this capacity since June of 2018. She joined Chart in February of 2017 as the CFO, and prior to joining Chart, Jill was the CFO of Trucklight Company, as well as having held multiple operational and financial executive positions at Dover Corporation and its subsidiaries. Prior to joining Dover in 2004, she held financial and operational roles at Arthur Andersen, Honeywell Corporation, and Sony Corporation. In addition to serving on Chart's board of directors, she also serves as an independent director of the board of Parker Hannifin Corporation. Jill received an MBA from the University of Notre Dame and a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration from LaSalle University. She is the winner of the 2020 ExxonMobil Power Play Rainmaker Award, the 2020 S&P Global Platts Energy Award for Chief Trailblazer, and the World LNG Executive of the Year for 2020. She serves on the nonprofit board of directors for the National Association of Manufacturers, NAM, and the U.S.-India Strategic Partnership Forum. Welcome, Jill. Thank you so much for joining us on the Hydrogen Podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm so appreciative that you had me on the show and looking forward to our conversation today.
We're looking forward to it also. For some, it feels like the conversation of using hydrogen to power the energy transition has picked up steam in the last couple of years, but this isn't a new energy source. And Chart Industries has been working with hydrogen for a long time now. Would you mind giving our audience a brief overview of Chart Industries and the role hydrogen has played in the company?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because if you look back in Chart legacy, we served hydrogen markets for over 58 years. And now with the addition of Howden into our portfolio, they have over 100 years of hydrogen experience. Nobody cared about that until May of 2020. So we're in year 3.5 now of an intense amount of focus in the market on hydrogen. And that's something that we can bring our 150 plus years of experience to. So I'll step back a little bit. You touched on in the introduction, really good summary of what we do in hydrogen. If you think about the hydrogen value chain from 3 buckets, the first being the production of the molecule, the second being storage and transport, and the third being end use. We serve all 3 of those in a variety of ways. So we do not produce or own the molecule itself, but we provide process technology to liquefy hydrogen to those who do, as well as storage and transport, bulk tanks, storage tanks, ISO containers to move the molecule, liquid hydrogen and gaseous trailers, as well as compression into all of those aspects of the first 2 buckets of the value chain. And then finally, we serve the end use market with our capabilities from hydrogen fueling stations, mobile refuelers, onboard Class 8 heavy duty tanks that also can serve the trains and planes types of applications. So the best way to think about us, a broad-based install base, and that's something that's really important to the hydrogen economy, especially because there's lots of players that want to be in the hydrogen hype. And having that install base gives our customers a high level of confidence in the actual working relationship of the products and the technologies, as well as confidence that the safety and certification standards can and will be met. And then the last part I'd say is with the addition of Howden, we're now able to touch much deeper into the gaseous hydrogen piece of the puzzle, as well as the liquid. And I do think it's going to be a combination of both that serve the energy transition.
I have to say, Chart, it's an impressive company. It's got a wealth of products and businesses under its umbrella. Can you go into detail about, kind of your core offerings that are important to the hydrogen economy and discuss the projects that Chart Industries has been involved with that will accelerate the energy transition?
Absolutely. So we call ourselves molecule agnostic, and we serve what we deem yeah, exactly. It's a nice place to be, right? And I love how you characterize the question in that we've been blessed. We're privileged with the portfolio that we have, because a lot of our equipment can be utilized in traditional applications, which was the starting point, oil and gas, all the way through to applications like carbon capture and hydrogen and helium. And so having that ability to use our same manufacturing capability and capacity to serve all these different molecules gives us flexibility and agility when you have softness in one end market and everybody's gung-ho in another. So that's a really nice portfolio to have. When we talk about the business, we talk about the Nexus of Clean power, clean water, clean food, clean industrials. So the core offerings, I talked through the value chain. That same value chain that I described for hydrogen is the same for any molecule. And you kind of translate that product offering into these other areas. So we do have water treatment technology and capability, which is something that we're seeing more and more out there in the world, is partnering energy and water, power and water together, especially outside of the Western Hemisphere, where the lack of power and the lack of clean water is becoming more and more prominent, especially for governments. And then we have a carbon capture capability technology from small scale, which is pretty cool because it's for beer and wine. So it's a reuse case. Okay. My favorite part of the business, right. And all the way through to large scale, which would be cryogenic carbon capture for anything that's industrial or oil field. You guys are all very familiar with that. Talking about the hydrogen economy itself, some of the key projects, and it's an interesting economy because I think it's evolving from, when we talked about pre-May of 2020, that was almost all space exploration, utilization of the hydrogen molecule. And now you're getting into the power and power to end use and energy sources, fueling, so more applications and broader applications. And what we love about the hydrogen market is that there's plenty of first of a kind activities that we're getting involved in early. And some of the areas and projects that I point to range from hydrogen liquefaction, 15 ton per day liquefiers that are now getting bigger and bigger and smaller. So it's pretty fun to see, hey, we've got a micro one that we want to do, and then how large can we go, and what's the optimal amount? Do you chain them together or not? And then we've done like hydrogen for e-methane for ships. Also, we've done Shell's red to green hydrogen project, and that utilized some of the Howden capability and compression capability there. Some of the fun ones that are more targeted around end use, because I think what you saw in the first 2 of the last 3 years of actual commercialization was a focus on production and storage and transport. In this last year and a half, we've seen more commercialization on the end use, which to me is a nice sign that the economy and the ecosystem is developing toward demand.
Absolutely.
And so then we get into things like hydrogen mobile refuelers for customers like Nikola. We've got hydrogen fueling stations and refueling stations for heavy duty as well as light duty transport. And some of the more fun ones where we have, I think we have the only liquid hydrogen onboard vehicle tank that works together with various different fuel cells. And just recently with Hyzon Motors, we used our liquid hydrogen tank on their onboard vehicle for TFG Foods. And it was actual very successful road test. And
congratulations on that, by the way. That was huge.
Yeah,
was awesome.
it's really great to see, and with no boil off and just the distances that liquid can go, really tells you that. And I'm a proponent, by the way, of don't use hydrogen for everything, right? It has to be for the right application. Like, I think it's
Absolutely.
silly. And again, I'm in a great position to be able to say that because we serve other molecules. If you're a hydrogen only company, all you're saying is hydrogen. But this is a great example of it really is the right application for liquid hydrogen in this class 8 heavy duty and above. I don't believe that hydrogen in light duty or passenger vehicles is the right application. But this demo and this pilot and the fact that the tank brings the capability to go long haul, long distances with similar payloads to diesel is a testament to the evolution of the hydrogen ecosystem right now.
You know, I'll say this, and this is just all fun. I'm a complete proponent of light duty vehicles being hydrogen. I talk about it a lot on this show, and I've got some others that push back on me for that. But no, I will go to my grave saying, let's put it in everything for cars, all cars.
All
but
right. All right. So
that's just me.
Would you, let's go down a rabbit hole here.
Sure.
So let's say hydrogen instead of electric vehicles for light duty. Let's just focus on passenger.
And see, so what I always say is, you know, a fuel cell EV, it's still an EV, so it's still an electric vehicle. I don't think there's enough lithium to support a global changeover for EV. But, you know, that being said, I think hydrogen even still has a role in synthetic fuels.
Yep,
so a lot of the technology that we're seeing now with hydrocarbons and splitting out the hydrocarbons early instead of later in the refining process, being recoupled together for syn fuels, I think is a much more elegant solution than just, you know, flipping a switch and going right to fuel cell vehicles. I think it's just a much more smooth transition.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good answer and an appropriate way to think about it. Yeah, I think the challenge you have with just light duty is you still have to fight this battle against, you know, traditional, you know, my Ford F-150 versus, you know, that changeover. So it's an interesting debate. I'm going to just do a selfless plug here on the lithium side. Funny because there's this ongoing debate, right, about the cleanliness or the need for mining. And a key portion of the business that we have on the Howden side in compression and fans is really around clean mining, because as you need more lithium, these mines are getting deeper, hotter, and you need that ventilation capability in the mines. So I don't see mining going away. It's how do we make them cleaner and greener? And I think, you know, to your point, right, there's definitely needs to be a considerable amount more of lithium if you're going to get there on the battery side of the house.
I think ultimately, as you go down that rabbit hole, like we're talking about, the most, and I already used this word once, but elegant solution would be to have that fuel cell in conjunction with a smaller scale battery, one that's not entirely reliant on just one large battery pack. Something where I can't remember the car that's coming out with some supercar that has a smaller lithium pack and a fuel cell where the fuel cell can charge the battery and then the car runs off the battery. I think that's more along the lines of where we should all end up looking for that end goal.
I drove a rental car that was kind of an e-hybrid or something, and it was amazingly powerful and quiet. So, so there might be a convert in me somewhere here one of these days.
I'll get you. I'm going to get you there.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to tour it in the business, the heavy duty and above.
Absolutely. And I think that really is the first application for it. So again, congratulations on the Hyzon deal with the liquid storage. I thought when I read that, I was amazed by it. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I am impressed by the scope and diversity of Chart Industries. And it looks like to me, outside of producing hydrogen, Chart has every aspect of the hydrogen value chain covered. And that sets you up to be this one-stop shop to help hydrogen producers achieve their goals. Can you go into detail on how Chart Industries is supporting their customers in the energy transition and meeting their environmental and operational goals?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important too, as well, because one of the things that we sit in a unique spot in our company is that not only do we have our own internal sustainability targets and ESG goals that you see reported out every April in our sustainability report, but we get to help our customers achieve theirs. And it ranges, it's not just hydrogen, right? It's anything from hydrogen, like we talked about, across that value chain, but also pieces of equipment that we provide, such as dosing, which doses molecules into packaging, as an example. And so the ability for those producers of water in a bottle to cut down on amount of plastic, right? So those are the types of things we're able to really help our customers through our product offering and Therefore, in turn, for their customers, they're able to still have firmness in a bottle of water, but have less plastic or PET. So that's a great example of not just staying in the hydrogen aspect of this. I would say there's a few things that we see in terms of how we help them that are really pertinent to this one-stop shop concept. One of them is that in some of, I would say, these newer economies, hydrogen being one of them, the customer has a concept, but they really need the ability to bring that concept to feed through the engineering work and understand where are they going to get the pieces and parts to make it work, and then have someone guarantee that it is going to work. And that's a great place how we're able to help our customers, where if they come to us with an idea early on, we'll work with them on that design. And then in conjunction with that, we have all the mission critical pieces and parts in-house that they don't have to go out to 15 or 20 different vendors or have multiple subsources. And that was really one of the foundations of the Howden acquisition that we did, was to bring that kind of last missing piece of compression for specialty and hydrogen in particular in-house, one of the longest lead time items. And so you not only do you help that customer by they get the products from us, they work together from us, we give them guarantees that they're going to work, but also we can control the schedule. The other part of that is we do have candid conversations where we say that's just don't do it. It's not going to work. You're going to waste money. And so I think that is also a unique thing for our customers to have a supplier and partner that will tell them, no, that's ridiculous, because there are some ridiculous things happening out there. And that's True. Important for the success of the industry, in our opinion, right, is that you don't get ridiculous that therefore in turn supersedes the practical. And we can play a key part in that. And then the last part of how we can help our customers here is really truly around being partners. I think something that we have to be super conscious of as a hydrogen ecosystem is that we cannot be solely reliant on the public sector or the government, whether that's the IRA, whether that's funding. We need to ultimately become self-sustaining. And that doesn't mean one of us in the value chain makes a lot of money and the others don't. We really have to partner up. And I think we see that with our customers and our partners, and we try to be the same for them.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. And, that so many people are trying to hop onto the IRA and other government subsidies, and that's fine at first. But I'm with you 100%. Get as self-reliant as soon as possible so you don't have to really rely on those government subsidies, because they will go away at some point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we can all equate things to solar and wind and all of that, right? But the more that we as a private industry can figure out how to be self-sustaining, and don't get me wrong, I think those things are helpful in kickstarting an economy, but not being solely reliant on that is important.
Absolutely. As an aside, one of the things that I do like about Chart coming into the hydrogen space is your ability, your history to be able to scale. And increasing your scale, your scope, and adjust that. And I think that's one of the things that I've been having an issue seeing within the industry now. So many of these smaller tech companies coming out with new technologies, and that's kind of their big concern is scaling up production. And I would venture to think that with your history, with your background in Chart, that's not going to be a concern.
That's true. Very true. And one of our philosophies, we have a strategy that we internally call flexible manufacturing. So manufacturing strategy. And the foundation of that is that we want to ensure that we can make every single one of our products in more than one location. And I think, I don't want to say we're 100% there, but certainly 97% plus.
Yeah.
And that really gives you the flexibility. It really allows you to scale up or down, which I think is equally important, that you don't have, what you saw 10 years ago in our business was, okay, big LNG project came and that was it. And that was great. And you had to ramp up and everything's going crazy. And then when that comes to an end, suddenly you're having to lay off 25% of your workforce. Right. And my job is to keep many people employed and continue to profitably grow the business. And I think having that flexibility and having welders and welding training programs and folks around the world that can go to different shops and we're able to scale up and down and share that talent is what allows us to do that. And so, no, I don't I don't necessarily have a concern about capacity, although we try to stay ahead of it and invest in it organically and inorganically where we see opportunities. We don't always time it right. We never time it right. It's, but usually we time it too soon, which isn't necessarily horrible, as long as it's not too soon. So I think what I'm more concerned about, which you didn't ask me to click this question, but I'm going to answer it anyway.
That's okay.
Is I'm more concerned that you get everybody wants to say they're in hydrogen. And so then you get entrants into spaces in the hydrogen value chain that don't really understand the difficulty of producing or holding, storing, or using the molecule. And, the first time you have a real bad incident, a safety incident, could cause the demise of the hydrogen economy. And so, ensuring that we're all being super conscious of safety certifications and not having competition just be able to come in without those characteristics is very important to me.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because recently have had several questions come in asking about safety and regulations and everything. So that is on others' minds. So I'm glad to hear that you're taking it seriously too. You're thinking about it.
Yeah, and we do a lot ahead of time on safety. Like we're leading with governments on safety and certifications. We do have the only, or certainly one of two only certifications for South Korean liquid hydrogen trailers, and that's a heck of an undertaking. Group code for liquid hydrogen storage in China, multiple years, 3 years, I think it took us. So while that's hard to do, I think it's important because it sets what the next guy's requirement is. Now, I would suggest that the governments that are spending time on their own hydrogen work should probably be talking to each other about some form of a global certification.
I like that. Let's get that going.
Yeah. I'll dial these folks up as soon as we're done.
Okay, perfect. If you don't, I will.
Okay, sounds good. Let's both do it. 2 calls in a day.
So, okay, looking at the big picture, I'm curious to get your thoughts on hydrogen's role in the energy transition. So again, big picture, what do you think it's going to do? What will it take to create that secure energy future with hydrogen?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, everybody's got a view on, is it 30% of power in the future? Is it what percent? And I don't have a view on that. I think it's going to be a part of the total solution. I think the key is that we should all be thinking about the energy transition as a hybrid, and there's not one single answer. I think that it's really important on the scale side of things and getting to scale, getting away from pilot and demonstrations and getting into real scale. I mean, you're not going to get there. You're not going to have hydrogen be 10% plus portion of the energy transition unless you have the ability to link California to New York City, as an example, or the ability to link Copenhagen with Amsterdam. And so how do you bring these things together and do so in a scaled way? I think you're starting to see a little bit of that, and that's really what some of these programs are trying to do, but we're a ways away from that yet.
I think so too. If we switch gears a little bit, you've mentioned a little talking about the Howden acquisition. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that acquisition? What led you to the decision to acquire them, and what does it mean for Chart Industries and the future of the hydrogen economy?
Yeah, so we've been around the Howden business for years and very familiar with it. We also had partnered with them on certain things with respect to hydrogen itself. We loved the global footprint that Howden had, filled in a lot of the geographic gaps. So I talked a little bit about more access to gaseous hydrogen, but I didn't talk at all about geographic locations like South Africa, Middle East, Chile, Vietnam. These were locations that we Chart Legacy did not have a presence in, let alone a manufacturing presence, and Howden does. And that's brought us the ability to get closer to some of the projects, regions that we do think are really going to be focused on energy transition. And also, by the way, clean water. And so that's something that we like. We also love the aftermarket service component of the Howden business. Bringing that into the Chart family, we're now over 30% of our business in aftermarket service repair. So it's not just about hydrogen, not just an application that it further penetrated for us, but also our ability to get close to sticky with customers around the world and bring all that mission critical equipment that we were lacking. To my prior answer about these renewables customers want a one-stop shop. There's no doubt about that, right? And so that gives us a really unique place to be. And then the last thing I would say is we were pretty thoughtful around the fact that Howden doesn't compete with some of the big guys in compression that we work with on big LNG projects, and never will. And so it really kind of facilitates our ability to penetrate the specialty areas of our end markets without disrupting the bigger LNG work that is certainly currently in a strong cycle, and we expect that to continue for the coming years.
If I switch gears a little bit again and get to something that I'm passionate about and get frustrated with, I'll be quite honest, on the regular, reading stories about hydrogen, and that's the colors. Everything started off with these color schemes. It drove me nuts. It still does. I understand why they were doing it, but now that carbon intensity is making more of itself known, do you think there's this debate over that, and does it cause this undue confusion or barriers on the supply and demand side of, quote unquote, green hydrogen just versus low or no CI?
Yeah, it's funny. You go back to that. I use that May 2020 marker in the conversations, and everybody was like, "It's got to be green, 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 green." And now you guys are nuts, right? We're not going to rip out all of the existing infrastructure around the world and replace it all with green hydrogen. Like, it was just ridiculous. And and what we would see commercially was not, some green, but a lot of our backlog at that point in time and still today are a variety of different hydrogen applications, and they're just not pure play green. Never mind the fact that, like, to your point, right? Nobody knows how to actually classify what pure green hydrogen means. How far up or down the value chain do you go? I remember back, I would talk about it at home, and I remember my daughter at the time, she was like 7, and she'd say, "What's the difference between pink hydrogen, blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, purple hydrogen?" And you say, "Well, I don't know what." You say, "Nothing." And I like to say that same thing, right? Because if we're really all aligned on this concept of a transition, you have to take steps to get there, and you can't go right to the answer in its entirety. And therefore, I think any progress in utilization or blending of something that is a cleaner option, even if it's not in its entirety, is progress. And so I'd like to eliminate the conversation completely about that. I also think that we as an industry have gotten ourselves into a funky discussion about ways to work the system of capturing credits to call yourself fully green. And that's just really not, if the actual intent is to become cleaner and have less carbon emissions, that utilizing a credit system to get to an answer doesn't actually get you there. So I think it's incremental progress is more important than any of kind of these mechanisms that everybody wants to use to measure.
Right. Surprise, surprise. Treat a transition like a transition.
Exactly.
Not a light switch. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, who's going to rip out all the existing infrastructure? Nobody, right? No one's going to. And by the way, as soon as your power goes out at home, you don't actually want it to stay out, and you don't actually care if you're in Texas in the summer and it's 110 degrees and your air conditioner goes out. You don't really care, I guarantee you, whether you're CO2 friendly.
Right. And being in Houston right now and it's 103 outside, I hear that.
I mean, I hate to say it, but let's all call a spade a spade. If it impacts us, we're going to be less concerned. And so I think that's also like really important. How do you get that existing infrastructure a little cleaner?
Right. I love it. So when I was doing some research on the company, I came across a concept that Chart's calling the Nexus of Clean. And it's an interesting strategy, and I was hoping you wouldn't mind explaining it a little bit to the audience and showcase how it can be leveraged to create value from the recent IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, so the Nexus of Clean actually came about, the term, which I think we have like trademarked. I don't know why, but Nexus of Clean: clean power, clean water, clean food, clean industrials. It came into kind of that tagline because we would talk internally about all the interlinkages between these end markets, especially when we were seeing the desire for these applications and these customers to achieve sustainability goals or to provide for a cleaner environment. And one of the greatest examples I give when we say interlinkage, and to us, it generated from how do we sell more? How do we sell more of something to these customers that already exist? We have a customer sitting brewing in Wisconsin. They started as a customer of ours as a beverage tank customer, so CO2 for brewing. And then they became a customer of ours for our Earthly Labs small-scale carbon capture technology, because in brewing, you need CO2. They were buying CO2 from the outside and bringing it in. And now with the Earthly Labs offering, they're able to capture CO2 through their brewing process and reuse it into making their beer. So not only are they not emitting that CO2, they're spending less on buying CO2. Then that same customer, we say, well, here again, the Nexus of Clean, their breweries typically, not theirs, but breweries as a whole, typically will have a water odor problem. And so then in turn, we start talking to them about SDOX, our water treatment system. And so this is the genesis of the Nexus of Clean, is that customers typically will need more than one of these solutions to not only help them achieve sustainability targets, but also actually make their business better. In many cases, it's more economical for them.
Yeah.
And so that's really what the Nexus of Clean is all about. And then take that the next step to your second part of the question on the IRA. So we're conscious that we don't want customers that only can afford to do what they're going to do because of the IRA, but yet we like the fact that they're able to at least maybe get started with the IRA assistance. And when you start looking at the aspects of the IRA, and we have some webinars, by the way, if people are interested, we can provide those that talk about the genesis of, if you're a hydrogen IRA applicant, but you're going to incorporate carbon capture, are these credits stackable, as an example, or not, or if you're going to utilize U.S. made in America equipment into your project, how does that work in conjunction with the IRA? So there's a lot of opportunity here in that Nexus of Clean, not just hydrogen specific to the IRA.
One of the things that I admire about you is your leadership acumen. And with everything you have going on, you still make time to promote and praise your team publicly. I saw you participate on a call for summer interns recently, and your prominent role in the Emerging Leaders Program and employees that I've talked to have raved about your positive contributions to the hydrogen economy and the community. So I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I'm going to. Would you talk about your core leadership philosophy and how you contribute to educate and encourage the next generation of hydrogen industry leaders?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important as a leader that you ensure that there is that next generation, especially in industries like ours, where you can see the potential for industrial manufacturing becoming a lost art, where there's other more intriguing and interesting and kind of sexy things out there in technology and tech. But if you look at our business, we get to offer all of that together, where we actually are like we have clean tech, we are innovative, and kind of look for what we would say next gen stuff. So I think it's really important that you create an environment that people are interested in. You spend so much of your life at work, and so how do you create an environment that gives people the opportunity? And it's my favorite part of my job. Talking to the interns, it blows my mind the level of capability, capacity, intellect that these guys have. I mean, I don't have a clue what they're saying half the time, but that's, fostering that and giving them avenues such as the Emerging Leaders Program or the Rotational Engineering Program are just really important to the success of the business in 10, 20, 30 years. And so this educate is really important, but I think practical education is more important than, certainly, we'll pay for tuition for certain MBAs and all of that, but it's more about, if you have somebody that has the desire, then let's give them the chance. And we do that from the shop floor on. We're just implementing a shop floor engineering program inside of Chart. So people who want to become junior engineers can do that, welding programs. And I could go on and on. This is, as you can tell, just like really close to my heart. Yeah. I think it's super important. And I would also say that you, as a leader, do not expect people to work harder than you do. And I think if you show them that, then you'll get the best of their hearts and minds. And that's super important for the future. The last thing I would say that is, and I don't know that this is different. It's just probably a different time we're in. People in our company, and I think this applies to every company, they want to, well, a company can't necessarily have a heart itself, the people can. And
Right.
so giving back and allowing for the time for people to give back is super important to our team members, and we've tried to foster that, whether that's through giving an extra day of vacation a year for them to volunteer, or matching donations or that type of thing. So again, I think all of it goes toward the future of whatever ends up being the winner in energy transition. It's Chart's going to be a part of it, and so you got to have the people to make the product.
No, I think so too. When you have employee buy-in on your goals, they work harder. And it's not just that they work harder; they put themselves into it because they believe in it.
Yes.
And this really is an industry that if you believe in it, you can make a drastic difference. And so that's one of the things that really stood out to me that you promote, and it really resonated with me also.
Yeah, it's really cool. We started this thing. I would do a daily shout out, a daily spotlight of one of our team members or a group, or something that was just something positive we want to share. We started that May 2nd, 2020, when COVID was like at its height, and it was a way to connect. 7 days a week, I send a shout out from me, and that's been the case since May 2nd, 2020. Never missed a day, and I have never had a day where I don't have a backlog of people nominating each other for that shout out. So it's, it really goes, they want to work together. And if you make the space to allow them to do that, it's so successful.
That's great. If we can talk about policy, the U.S. government has announced several subsidies and incentives for hydrogen producers recently with the IRA and the 45Q and the 45V credits. One of the things that I found that was missing was to really kickstart hydrogen in the U.S. were incentives for the demand side. But the U.S. government just made an announcement earlier last month regarding notice of intent to explore and invest up to $1 billion in a demand side initiative to support the regional clean hydrogen hubs. Do you think this will work? Does it solve the chicken and egg issue? And also, I would love your thoughts on if Europe's going to follow suit and announce their own plans for that kind of an incentive.
Yeah, so this would take a lot longer than the podcast time that we have for us to really get
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there, and maybe I'll just pluck off a few comments.
Sure.
I think, and I touched on this maybe a little bit around the edges earlier, but no one ever said, no matter what the industry, no matter what the end market was, no one ever said waiting for the government to decide was a good strategy. And that's something I think that we all should be really conscious of, because it would take a long time. And I think the government themselves would tell you that. All the governments would tell you that, right? They're slow. They've got processes. And that's where we sit today, right? We're a year plus from the announcement of the IRA, and it's yet to be actually rolled out.
Right.
So my view is that's great. I think it's the idea is generating the right thought processes, but I don't love the idea of having multiple different. I mean, you named like 5 in your question.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it does create confusion. It's interesting because even pre-IRA announcement, there was a lot of confusion about the 45Qs on carbon capture. And I actually think the IRA announcement clarified something on the 45Qs, but then created noise on the hydrogen side. I do think that Europe and all these other economies are going to follow suit, because there's a fear that manufacturing and or the energy transition gets ahead in one region or another. So I think that there's going to be follow on around the world. Again, I'd go back to, I wish the governments would work together on a global certification, a global pricing construct, things like that I think would be more demand generating than individual regionalized credit or funding programs. Now, with all of that said, I'm not anti it. I think it's going to kickstart some activity, and that's a great thing for the economies. I think we just have to, as private industry, make sure that it's not the only thing that is driving demand and backlog.
I got one last question. You have a wealth of experience in the hydrogen industry. and we always talk about the future of the hydrogen industry, but what, in your opinion, do we need to do right now to help the hydrogen economy move forward and solidify hydrogen's importance in the energy transition?
Well, I think you touched on it in a lot of the dialogue we've had around being practical and pragmatic about that and how we go about it, right? So instead of just saying everybody's got to be green in order for it to get started, that's super important. This idea of getting away from demonstration and getting some scale, I think we've got to do that. We've got to talk about using existing infrastructure more and more and more. And, I think the other thing is just generally speaking, that right application for hydrogen versus hydrogen being the only answer. And I was an early proponent of hydrogen before all this started for lots of different reasons, including for the future growth of the business. So I think that it's very important also that when we as private sector leaders have the opportunity to speak with government officials, that we're aligned on what are the three things we need versus, when I get an audience with somebody important, I start saying, oh, this is what Chart does. You got to say, we've got as leaders to get together and say, well, these are the three things we need for the hydrogen economy to succeed. And we all have to drumbeat that. And otherwise, I think we're going to end up with more and more confusion. So we're well on our way, though. Don't get any of my comments to be that we're not well on our way. I'm more of a realist, but where we were 2 years ago, we're in a way more pragmatic place today. And so I think my closing comment would be we are well on our way for hydrogen to be a very important piece of the future of energy and future of power. And we all just need to continue to make sure that we're pragmatically approaching this ecosystem and ensuring that we don't have a safety incident.
I say wise words. This has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. Really interesting to see the inner workings of Chart Industries and the incredible value chain you've built out for the hydrogen industry. I also love the Nexus of Clean concept that you all are working with, and I encourage all of my listeners to check it out. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today.
It's been wonderful, great conversation, and I look forward to many more.
Excellent. All right, everyone. Thank Jill again for joining me today to discuss her views on the hydrogen industry. In my opinion, she's done a fantastic job as a CEO of Chart Industries, and I look forward to watching her shape the hydrogen economy in the future. You can check out Chart Industries' website at www.chartindustries.com to see everything they have going on. Thanks again. I hope you have a great day. Take care.
Hey, this is Paul. I hope you liked this podcast. If you did and want to hear more, I'd appreciate it if you would either subscribe to this channel on YouTube or connect with your favorite platform through my website at www.thehydrogenpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. I very much appreciate it. Have a great day.